Hey everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. Well, today is the first Monday of the month. It's Labor Day. Happy Labor Day. And it means it's time for McDougall Monday, where he will answer your questions today. And Dr. John McDougall is receiving the Luminary Award this Sunday. There's still tickets, September 10th. Palm Desert at the Marriott at the Plantrician Conference, and you should go because this is a lifetime achievement. Welcome, Dr. John McDougall.
Well, I'm glad to hear there are tickets, AJ. You know, I've recruited people off the street to come and be part of the audience to clap for me.
Well,
but I have gotten a lot of family members to join in.
Well, Dr. McDougall, I'll be the first one leaping to my feet. I got a new dress that I'm going to wear.
You're going to be there, AJ. Well, that'll make it all worthwhile to come. You'll get a chance to meet my sister.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, and my grandson Jason will be there.
I can't wait. This will be on McDougall.
My son and his daughter-in-law will be there, and my daughter Heather will be there.
Heather, I've met. Greg, I've met. Mary, I've met.
Last time anybody's going to say anything nice about me, so I better show up. I hope they have some nice things to say. Anyway, It's going to be next Sunday. But which brings me to a problem, AJ. And I thought we could spend part of the hour, you and I, talking about this. But if it doesn't go anyplace, it's okay. It's a dilemma I have. And that is I'm going to be giving a talk on Sunday night, next Sunday, on the 10th of September, 2023. At the Plantrician Conference. I'm going to be giving a talk about my life in the sense of what I've learned about diet and how I've learned it. And I go through some past discussions, some videos that I've shown to you and the audience. I've shown videos of Dennis Burkett and videos of Nathan Pritikin and videos of Roy Swank, and discussed Walter Kempner, who I've talked about so often. And these are my four mentors. So I'm going to tell them about how I learned the things in the past. I'm going to tell them about the Surgeon General's report that came out in 1977. That was a big impact on me. And a few other things that came out. It wasn't surgery, it was the McGovern report in 1977. And Surgeon General report that came out in 85 by C. Everett Koop, and, a few other things. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell them that what's caused me in the past to get to where I am today. But the problem I'm having is to tell them about the future, AJ, because, you got to have your head buried in the sand to think that it's going to be easy for us in the future. And that's maybe the way I should say it. You have to have your head buried in the sand, or you have to be a climate denier, or you have to be an atomic war denier, or you have to be an infectious disease denier, or riots in the street denier. I mean, there are so many things that are facing us in the future. How do I turn this into a positive talk where the audience will feel like they can leave on an up note, because it's all so depressing. But, Chef AJ, I think we can win. And I'm going to tell you why during this presentation, why I think that people can save ourselves. And I'm going to talk about the role of lifestyle medicine physicians, the people at the Plantrician Conference. But, tell me, Chef AJ, or audience or whatever, tell me what you'd like to hear positive, and not some silly stuff, okay? Not like aliens coming from outer space and saving us. I don't want to hear that. But any positive things you can think about in terms of what we can do to make our home livable. Because right now, things are not looking very good. But, I can't have my grandson sitting in the audience at 19 years old, hearing that his future is bleak without some out. He's got to have some positive note that keeps him, enjoying life and striding ahead. It's like the people did during World War II. But for my parents, it had to be really, really difficult. But they all came to the task, and they saved democracy. They saved our way of life during World War II. Can we do that again? During World War I, the people in Denmark all changed to a vegan diet, 3 million of them. Can we do that again? What are the tools that we have? What do you see as an optimism for all of us And what do you see as the possible optimism in terms of what a medical doctor might do? I mean, how do I tell these young, and they are young because I'm 76 years old. How do I tell these young men and women, you know, because I've lived 76 years, what I've learned and what I see, and I cannot leave them on a negative note. It does no good at all. In fact, I built a website about diet and climate change, which offers only message of optimism. Doesn't have any negative messages on that whole website. It's at McDougallFoundation.org. And so that's what I want to present to them is I want them to walk out of that auditorium thinking, yeah, I realize things are tough. I knew that before I walked in to hear Dr. McDougall talk. But I can see where I can play a role as a doctor, you know, to help my fellow human beings. That's what I'm faced with for next Sunday night. And boy, oh boy, if any of you have any thoughts on what you'd like to communicate, don't tell me we're going to plant enough trees. Don't tell me we're going to have carbon capture machines. It's like talking about aliens. You know, tell me about things that are practical that we can really do. Don't tell me you're a climate denier. I don't even want to talk to you. Good grief. Go away. Go back to the, you know, medieval, but even worse, go back before they thought that the Earth was flat. I don't want to hear from you. All right, AJ. Well, how about that for opening hour? What would you like to talk about yesterday about Hans?
Well, yeah, you were passionate, and I really appreciate it because you really prepared what you were going to say about him and included the video, and it was really lovely. It was just so professional and it was beautiful. And yeah, thank you. I think they're going to do something for him too at the Plantrition conference. Not like a big deal like you.
It sure should. Yeah. Well, that video I had of him, AJ, you know, I did that video. And I did that on a lot of people, you know, people that I thought would really carry on into the 21st century. And I warned people ahead of time, you know, turn off your screen, you know, because you're going to be confronted with Hans Deal in a way that you probably have never seen him before. And I put that video up on him, and he just walked right into their living room. It was an amazing video. You know, and I want you to know, I found that video 1 minute before we went on. I had forgotten about it. I was going to show the other one on the Lifetime Achievement Award I got at ACLM in 2019 when Hans was the host for that award. That's what I was going to show. And then all of a sudden I thought, you know, I did a video of Hans Deal. I took him in my back room with my professional team of camera people. And I set him up and I had him talk right into the screen to people, not knowing that he wouldn't be with us, but knowing there was a time when all of us won't be with who's ever in the future. And I wanted to leave that legacy. And boy, did I tell you that film, I watched that thing for no more than 30 seconds. And I go, my God, I don't know whether I should show this or not. I mean, Hans will walk right in their living room. It will be bigger than life. And he was. That's what that film showed. And that's what happens when you do a professional photography session with somebody like Hans Deal. You don't want to mess around.
That's so neat how you captured everybody, Dr. McDougall.
I got a lot of them. I don't think I got you, though. Did I, Chef AJ?
Oh, yeah, I did that talk, you know, one time in 2000.
Oh, man, that was so good.
Yeah, and you're the one that encouraged me to do it. I was really nervous. And you would have been a great Hollywood producer, Dr. McDougall.
Well, you know, Chef AJ, you kept telling me, you kept coming back and you said you're going to talk about protein. And then
No,
you're going to talk
calorie density, but you already had somebody do that.
calorie density. And
Yeah.
I said, you're not an expert on that. You're only an expert on one thing. And I kept telling you that. There's only one thing you're an expert on. That's Chef AJ. And that's what I want you to talk about. And boy, it was one of the best presentations we've ever had. And I don't say that with any flattery at all. I really mean it, Chef AJ. That was a game changer for people. So you responded. I just asked you to do it.
Thank you.
This is what I want to see. I want to learn about Chef AJ. Boy, if you haven't seen that film, go to my website,
Yeah.
drmcdougall.com, and you look at the Chef AJ. You're going to sit down for an hour and you're going to be in tears and laughter.
Thank
At the
you.
end of the presentation. It was amazing.
Hey, Dr. McDougall,
Anyway, we got a lot of great people on those weekends, Chef AJ.
oh,
We got,
they were the best. I almost wish you would do them again, you know?
yeah, you know, it's my time's passed. That's what I have to share with people. Is It's gone. I've done my job. I still know a lot of things. I kind of look at the political scene a little bit. We got a couple of old candidates for presidency, and at least one of them says that, yeah, I may be old, but I got a lot of experience. And that's kind of in the mood that I'm in these days. Is I can't keep up with all the new crap, and it is crap, by the way, but it leads me not to keep up with it. Yeah, there are some good things in medicine and science, but they're few and far between. Most of it's hype. Most of it's selling you drugs that you shouldn't be taking because they do you more harm than good. But better yet, they're due to dietary diseases, which you can fix, like your inflammatory arthritis, your diabetes, your obesity. Oh, I tell you.
Hey, Dr.
Anyway,
Oh,
go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I'm just curious, what are you going to wear for your presentation? A Patrick James shirt?
I haven't picked out the shirt. I picked out the pants, and I'm going to wear a sports coat. Wow. I haven't decided on a tire yet, not yet, but I'm going to go up there with a full beard, though.
That's okay. It looks great. It looks terrific. It really
does.
Does.
There are some concerns I have a little bit about it. I haven't lectured in public for 5 years. So this will be a big deal. This will be likely the last time I lecture in public too.
Right. Wasn't the last time when you got the ACLM award?
It was the last time. That was in October 2019 is the last time I've been in front of the public.
Wow. Well, you're going to be great.
It was a lot of things, including the COVID epidemic. But there are a lot of things going on in my personal life that caused me to take a break.
Yeah. There's
I almost retired, AJ. I almost retired. I thought, boy, this guy's had it. He's over the hill. I might as well forget it. And but I did. I actually sent in my retirement letter to Oregon State University, or the Oregon, where my license is in Oregon. And then they wrote back to me and they said, well, you realize if you're going to retire from one state, we notify all the other states that you have licenses and you'll be retired in all states. But you have 6 months to call back your letter of resignation if you'd like to do that. So, it was like 5.5 months. They were down to the last 2 weeks. And I said, you know what? I guess I'm not going to retire. And I wrote him a letter and said, I'm not going to retire. So I'm still fully licensed in almost every state in the country. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Because of reciprocity and everything. I've got licenses in Oregon and California, Hawaii, Minnesota. And that gives me reciprocity to 35 states. And so I've got a license in almost every state.
Cool. There's people coming just to see you for the day, like Esther and Bev lovers that are driving down there.
Oh, that's nice. I look forward to it. I'm going to be busy, but I have most of the day is Sunday to kind of socialize with people and talk to them. And Mary and I are going to be hanging around on Sunday most of the day. Nice. Some of the day on Saturday. I'm actually doing a filming for Ocean Robbins.
Right. I got in on that too. I'm so excited.
Yeah. I hope it's good.
Yeah, he does good stuff. Well, if you wouldn't mind answering a few questions that were submitted. The first one is from Fran, and she says, Dr. McDougall, I'm relocating to the Portland area. I've been plant-based and following you for years, and I've even taught CHIP classes in Wisconsin. I'm in need of a new PCP doctor, preferably internal medicine. Do you have any recommendations? I saw that your son's practice is full, and I'm 73.
Well, he'll take good care of you. He's at Oregon Health and Science University, OHSU. He's a professor there.
She says
he has
full. It's full. She says his practice.
That's what I was going to tell you. It's full. Yeah. But sometimes if you mention my name, there's an influence. I would give it another try and say that give them your credentials. Tell them you follow the CHIP program, and you follow Dr. McDougall, and you just know other doctors acceptable, and you want to see Craig McDougall, but there are a few other doctors in the Kaiser system that you could see that would help you. But Craig has been well trained in diet therapy. I'll tell you another place you can go. You go see my brother in Brookings, Oregon.
Wow.
Have you ever met? You met my brother.
I haven't met him. Is he going to come to the ceremony?
No, he's not going to be there. He's probably the only family member that's not going to be there. But my brother used to take care of patients for us when we ran these weekends. We ran weekends for Whole Foods and weekends for a telecommunication company. And we'd have like 150, 200, well, maybe 150 people there. And I had to see all those people. I couldn't. So we had Dr. Clapper and Alona Paldy and Matt Letterman and Bill McDougall and Don Forrester. And, we had a lot of other doctors come in and see the patients with me. And so they're all well trained into getting people off drugs. So, Don Forrester's out of business. Alona Paldy and Matt Letterman are still in practice in Los Angeles. They might even do a telemedicine practice. I'd look into them. And, my brother, he's just has a local practice in Brookings, which is a long way from Portland, I'll tell you. It's like 4 hours.
Does he follow your principles, the McDougall diet?
He does. He personally lives this way, and he knows how to instruct you. So if you say, look, I don't want the drugs, I want to do what your brother does, he knows what to help you with. So no problem at all.
Great.
See, it's the same thing when you see my son at OHSU. He practices a little bit of both. He knows dietary therapy, and he knows that's the right thing to do. But he also knows that a lot of people don't want that. They just soon be sick and overweight as to fix the problem. So he has to deal with this, unfortunately, vast majority of people. It is the vast majority, I believe, out there, which, that's just too much for them to make it a change. They'd like to be well. They like to be off the drugs. They like to live long. They'd like to function and look well. But they just aren't willing to do what it requires to get everything you want. Now, you and I, of course, think it's no big deal because this is the best way in the world to live. But most of the population out there is just too overwhelming. I remember when I was first confronted with this idea. It was in 1972 or 73. Now, I thought this was crazy. I wasn't going to give up my meat and my pepperoni pizza. There's no way in the world. You couldn't live that way. I'm sure of it. I'm pretty sure you couldn't get enough protein and calcium too. So I understand where a lot of people come from. And so you have most of the folks out there that are practicing kind of a hybrid medicine, if they're doing it at all. And they really don't have the experience, except for the people I mentioned, to take care of you the way they should be cared for, unless you come to our telemedicine program, which is 12 days over the internet. And then Dr. Lim and I will take care of you for 12 days. And you have Dr. Lim for a doctor and me for a doctor the rest of your life. That's the only way we take patients, by the way. People have to come through either the St. Helena Hospital program I did, 20 years ago, or the resort program I did 10 years ago, or the telemedicine program I'm doing now. Otherwise, you don't join the practice. I don't have any desire for one-night stands, 7-minute office visits. My goal is to get you to change your life. I only feel good about that. And believe me, I get this probably once a week. Somebody writes me and says, I heard you in a lecture 40 years ago at St. Helena Hospital in Honolulu, or at St. Francis. That was the last one I got, St. Francis Hospital in Honolulu. And I want you to know, I listened to you and I changed my diet. And here I am, 75, 80, 85 years old. My friends have disability stickers. They're dead or they're in assisted living, and I'm just having a great time, going on trips, having fun with my grandkids and so on. And I just want to thank you. It seemed a little radical back then, but I listened to what you said, and here I am 5 decades later. And, that makes me feel good. I felt like I did my job. So, but anyway, that's why they have hybrid practices.
Is there anything you miss that you used to eat that you don't eat anymore?
Well, yeah, of course, I like but I do eat it. I don't deprive myself of anything.
Oh.
Like, for example, probably 6 times a year, I have a non-dairy ice cream.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And Halloween up until recently, because I'm not around any grandkids anymore. Now, every Halloween, the grandkids would go out and trick or treat for Babe Ruth bars for Grandpa. And that was the treat. So I've got 7 grandkids out looking for Babe Ruth, and they would bring them back to me, and I'd eat a Babe Ruth bar or two. So yeah, I eat candy bars, but I don't eat any animal foods. I joke with people about turkey at Thanksgiving. I haven't done that for a long time. So I don't eat any animal products, or I avoid free oils like a plague.
I know that's probably the reason you haven't received the Hall of Fame from Vegetarian Summerfest, because I think they take you seriously when you say you eat turkey.
Yeah, they do. I got fired from one of their conferences. I told them, I said, I want to come and make an impression. I said, look, what I'm going to do is this. I said, I'm going to be lecturing to 500,000 people. And I'm going to ask you to stand up if you are vegan. Okay, I want everybody to look around at the people next to them and note what you see. And now I want you to sit down if you're happy with your body weight.
Uh-oh, well, that's not going to get you fired.
Half of the vegans are going to be overweight or obese in that audience. To me, that's a violation of their principles. It condemns them to not being able to convey to the rest of the public the importance of animal rights, the importance of saving the planet. If you're talking to somebody who says, oh, you got to save the cows and the pigs and the chickens, but you'll end up looking like me. No, they're not going to buy it. You're standing there obese. You got acne all over yourself. You're sick. Why would somebody, even to save the animals and the planet, why would they sacrifice their health? So anyways, I wanted to deliver a message to the vegans, which they'll never invite me back to, that, vegan is one thing, and that's a religion. That's a principle. You don't, it's not a practicality. You don't have to be vegan to get these results. It's just a matter of it's easier. It's too hard to just do a little bit. But if you just, like I told you, if I, say I did have turkey on Thanksgiving and ham for Christmas and, whatever on my birthday, you think I'd be any more heavy or in bad health than I am now? Come on, let's be real. So anyway, I felt like there was an overwhelming problem with vegans because they're fat. They're fat vegans. I wrote an article in the book called The Starch Solution, titled The Fat Vegan. I wrote a newsletter 10 years before that called The Fat Vegan. I have to date not heard anybody that was offended by me using the term fat vegan. Never. Dang. They may be quietly saying something about it, but they know I'm telling the truth. And I'm trying to help them. I'm not trying to hurt them. I want them to be able to deliver the message about the planet and the animals, extremely important messages. In fact, that's basically all I spend my time thinking about anymore is the planetary issues. So, I want them to be good, effective missionaries, and they're not. They're disgustingly, obviously, let me take the word disgustingly back. They may like the way they look. Let's just say for most of society, it's a blemish to be overweight. That's the politically correct way to say it. Most people don't desire to be overweight. How do I know that? Because I was reading this morning in the Washington Post, 46% of the people in Saudi Arabia, in those countries, 46% of the women are obese, and Ozempic is one of the biggest selling products in that area of the world. Now, why are 46% of the women obese? Not overweight. No, we're talking about a BMI of 30% or more. In other words, at least half their body weight is fat. Excuse me, at least 30% of their body weight is fat. You're not supposed to prescribe Ozempic until somebody is obese. And you're not supposed to prescribe surgery until they're morbidly obese, which is a BMI of about 39% or better. So, think about the people who live in that area of the world. In Saudi Arabia, the UAE, who are we talking about? We're talking about the richest people in the world, eating the richest food in the world, raping our oceans and our lands and our rainforests and so on, so they can be obese and buy Ozempic. I don't know how I got off on that track, but I thought that was interesting this morning. 46% of the women in Saudi Arabia are obese. Excuse me, to run around obese and to have to spend $1,000 a month on Ozempic and only get a 17-pound weight loss. Excuse me, a 37-pound weight loss. 37-pound weight loss, it takes you 68 weeks to get that. And then what happens is your body finally says, I have had enough. I can put up with a certain level of sickness, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, stomach pains. I can put up a certain amount of that before I starve to death. And then you hit a plateau. At 68 weeks, you hit a plateau. That's a year 0.3. You know, that's like less than a year and a half. You lose your 37 pounds. You spent $17,000. You're done. You hit a plateau. So now you have to buy Ozempic the rest of your life, or guess what? The plateau is left in the wrong direction. It's just amazing what people, rather than eat bean burritos, which is what I had last night for dinner, or oatmeal, which I had this morning for dinner, Mary was going to make lasagna because the kids were going to come over last night, and we decided not. So we didn't have lasagna, and her rice and vegetable dish is just outstanding. I love my food. I think this is I know, I don't just think, I know beyond a doubt. I've been eating this way for, 47 years, probably. This is the best food there is.
I just had my 46th anniversary on Friday.
Did you?
Yeah.
I started eating this way in 1977.
Me too. September 1st. What a coincidence. Well,
I was probably that way too.
I think that I think people get using the F word now it's not they even I had a doctor correct me once and said you can't even call someone obese, you have to say someone who suffers with obesity. If people are very sensitive to this topic, Yeah,
I imagine there's all kinds of ethnic and racial and adjectives and so on. We're really getting good at defining our terms so we don't offend anybody. Excuse me. It's not good to be obese or sick. Sometimes they're going to start bragging about having diabetes. How bad is your diabetes? Oh, how much Ozempic do you take? Oh, how much shots of insulin do you take? Just like they did with heart surgery. Remember the day, maybe they still do it, when people would brag about how many grafts they got when they had open heart surgery. How many grafts did you get? Oh, I got 3. How many did you get? 8. I got 8. They brag about being sick. So what was that? How obese are you? Oh, I'm just 100 pounds overweight. Well, I got you. I'm 120 pounds overweight. I'm bigger, more powerful. I'm more desirable. Then we'll make everybody happy. I don't agree with that. When you're at a weight that detracts from your health and your ability to survive and contribute to society, you can't be the person that you could have been at that kind of body weight. You can't be as effective for you and your family, your society, being 100 pounds overweight. I don't believe that. I know you don't like it, but I don't think I ever wanted to win a popularity contest.
No.
Have you ever seen me wanting to win a popularity contest?
No, you have a famous line, I would rather be hated than ignored, which to me, I would not. I'd rather be ignored, but you're listening.
Can you see that? How terrible it is to be ignored? I've been ignored for, a long time, for 50 years.
Well,
especially when I'm dealing with, my friends and my family and my community, them suffering horribly. They suffer from damage that is far more severe than would be the damage done by alcohol or heroin or opioids or cocaine. Now if we had a opioid addiction problem where 46% of the women suffered from opioid, heroin, codeine, morphine. If 46% of the population suffer from these addictions, don't you think we'd do something? But these kinds of addictions are less destructive to your family, to you, to your community, to the world than is a food addiction. Think about the environmental damages you're doing. Think about the harm you're doing to 80 billion animals a year. Think about the fact that 80% of people are overweight or obese, are set up to die from heart disease or strokes. This is something to brag about? I don't think so. Not in my world, folks.
I think though with Vegetarian Summerfest it's more of an ethical vegan thing, and they're really trying to get people to go vegan. I guess they feel that if we don't give them the junk food, they're not going to want to be vegan,
Well, again, I've never been much for compromise, so I don't understand that point of view.
Yeah.
But you have to find a nicer person than I am. Now, Mary, my wife, my partner for 53 years now, she's a pleaser. She, if I had let Mary take a hold of the program, she'd probably let you have chocolate ice cream with M&Ms on top and chocolate syrup with a couple of marshmallows. I don't think so. I hope Mary wasn't listening to that one. But there are just people who are that way, AJ, and it's okay. I'm not trying to cause any criticism. There are people that are a pain in the ass like I am. I get in your face. I tell you what I know to be true.
Yeah.
I don't compromise.
Yep.
You take me for what I am, but at least you're dealing with somebody who's honest.
Yeah. So let's get back to the Baby Ruth. Was that your favorite candy bar more than like Snickers?
It still is. If I can get my hands on a Baby Ruth. Now, don't you send me Baby Ruth bars.
No, I would never send you Baby Ruths because as an ethical vegan, I wouldn't buy one. But there is
send me sweet potatoes.
Well, let me ask you this though. There is a vegan version. Can I send you that?
Well, maybe.
I mean, it's not like
only 2 candy bars, AJ. Don't you send me boxes like
they're making me. I looked it up. They're making me buy the whole box. There is a vegan version. I can make you a healthier version. Maybe I'll just bring it on Sunday.
Hey, AJ, if they have 30 in a box, why don't you keep 28 of them?
I'm not going to eat it.
Oh, well, then don't send them. Don't put them in my temptation zone.
That's a good idea. You just gave me a great idea. I'll use them for Halloween because at least they're vegan.
There you go. There you go. You got to get something.
But I know I can do it healthy, and I can do it healthy without even sugar, and I'm going to work on that and maybe bring it for you Sunday. But back to the questions. This one is from Gunther. Dr. McDougall, you've said that potatoes help out with maintaining eyesight, in some cases even improving it. Could the same be said for eating rice?
Oh yeah, that'd be fine. You got plenty of the luteins. That's what I was talking about. Lutein is present in very high concentrations of potatoes, and the macula of the eye is yellow, which is the color of lutein. And so lutein is concentrated in the macula of the eye, which is the most acute seeing area of the retina of the back of the eye. So would rice do it? Yeah, rice will do it. I mean, you're not going to push your eyesight to be any better by choosing potatoes as opposed to rice. Once you get enough lutein, that's enough. And that's one of the things that you need to get over. If you need a little bit, it doesn't mean more is better. Get over it, okay? You need a little vitamin C to take care of the jobs vitamin C does. You need a little thyroid hormone to take care of what the thyroid does. If you give more than what you need, what happens to it? It's either stored or eliminated, or in the process of being stored or eliminated, it has activities that are undesirable. There's no sense in giving more than you need. Fill all the receptor sites and then move on. So you've got enough lutein to make all the pigment in your macula in the back of your eye. What happens if you eat more lutein than you need to accomplish all of that? It's probably urinated out of the body. I would guess it's a water-soluble substance. I could be corrected on that. Maybe it's fat-soluble and absorbed. Doesn't matter. It's got to go someplace after it's caused its activity, and it causes overactivity when you give an overdose. Does that make sense?
Yep. Cool. Well, that's awesome. This next question is from Bonnie. What is the solution to constant heartburn and indigestion after eating?
Oh, I like that one.
You have a whole
You probably have a hiatus hernia. That's what I guess. You have a hiatal hernia, which is happens. So what happens is the stomach is pushed up from the abdominal cavity into the thoracic cavity. So it's pushed up through the diaphragm, and the hole in the diaphragm through which the esophagus passes is enlarged, and a large hole in the muscle is called a hernia. So you develop a hiatal hernia. So part of the stomach ends up in the chest. In that case, whenever you lie down, whenever you bend over, whenever you overeat, what happens is you push stomach contents up into the esophagus and it burns. All right. The way you deal with this, well, you can find a surgeon that'll pull your stomach back down into the abdominal cavity, put a couple of stitches in it, and that may be the way you want to go. But I'll tell you the way I would go, and the way I'd recommend my patients go, is they'd take and eliminate the things that cause indigestion. All right. meat, dairy, the stomach has to produce a tremendous amount of acid to digest the proteins in either one of these food substances. Oils, cause a lot of trouble, a lot of difficulty in the intestinal tract. So I would get those out of the diet. There are certain vegetables that I would avoid, raw vegetables of any kind. I'd eat all my food cooked. But in particular, onions, green peppers, cucumbers, and radishes cause terrible indigestion. I can't eat raw onions. It ruins the rest of my day. I have 2 slices of raw onions. I'm done for the afternoon and in the evening. Finally, I recover the next day because there's a couple of gases that are in the raw onions that are boiled off, by the way. So if you cook the onions, it won't bother you. But in raw onions, there are a couple of gaseous substances that cause horrible indigestion. So I'd get any raw food out of my diet. I would get onions, green peppers, cucumbers, and radishes out. And then what I'd do is I'd raise the head of the bed. Because even though, what you're saying is it happens when you eat, well, there's some of the time when you spend laying down in bed where gravity can work to your advantage and keep the esophagus in a state of healing when it's not being bathed by stomach acids. And you do that by using gravity. You raise the head of your bed. Boop, boop, boop. I can't get that right. Anyway, you raise the head of your bed about 4 inches on blocks so that you are laying at an angle when you sleep at night. Not bent now, that's the bent position, okay? You don't want to do that, but you want to be flat. You want to lay like that, 4 inches on the head of the bed. And that should help. And then the next thing you go on to is wafer antacids like Tums. There are several different kinds, but Tums is the most common taken because Tums is calcium-based, causes constipation. Milk and magnesia, which is another antacid, is magnesium-based, would cause diarrhea. So, you're going to have some adverse effects from these wafer or liquid antacids. And then the next step I would take is I'd use H2 blockers. But almost always just fixing the food, raising the head of your bed is all you need.
Nice. Thanks. You have a wonderful book, though, on the whole GI tract, digestive tune-up.
I do. It's nobody's written such a revealing, entertaining book as Dr. McDougall's Digestive Tune-Up. It's a book about a trip through the intestinal tract involving a couple of my patients. And it talks to you about bad breath and gallbladder disease and indigestion and constipation and diverticulosis and hemorrhoids and all kinds of other things that are due to poor function of the intestinal tract. Now, what do you think causes the intestinal tract to have poor function? Come on now, think about it. What could possibly in the whole wide world cause the intestinal tract to be healthy or sick? Come on now, give it some thought. Not too deep. Don't think too deep now. It could be emotional thoughts. Could be like a lack of tranquilizers. Maybe you're neurotic, then we should just give you some tranquilizers. That'll fix your stomach tract. Can you think of any other reason the stomach tract would be sick or healthy? Come on now, anything? Let's move on.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. This is from Heidi. And she says that her vitamin D was 11.74, which surprised her as she spends time in the sun. When she used to take the supplements, it was 40. She stopped the supplements several months ago after she heard one of your talks on vitamin D, but her doctor said I need vitamin, now she's saying B supplements of 10,000 international units daily, or I will have issues with my bones later on. She's 52 and 20 pounds overweight, but overall healthy.
Well, all I can tell you is taking doses of vitamin D greater than 1,000 international units a day can be toxic. When you get into really high doses, you increase your risk of falls and fractures. And how high does that have to be? I'm worried that doses that people typically take of 5,000 units a day is enough for them to get into a situation where they're having an increased risk of fractures and falls. So vitamin D blood levels are not reliable. Medicare stopped paying for vitamin D screening tests in March of this year. Okay, the Medicare. So Medicare stopped paying for the screening tests. I think it was Medicare. And the United States Preventative Task Force on Medicine doesn't recommend testing for vitamin D anymore. Anyway, I have the data on that in a new slide presentation I give, but it's not supported by government organizations or enthusiasm in the medical profession. It's only supported in the professions, so, the laboratories that do the vitamin D tests, the doctors who order the vitamin D, the people who sell the vitamin D supplements, they're all making money. They're the ones that support you paying attention to this and having a test done. The tests are unreliable. I give you the example of how in Hawaii, they looked at people who spend an average of 28 hours in the sun a day. And many of them are surfers. And that 28 hours a week, not a day, 28 hours of sunshine a week. And they looked at them and half the people flunked the vitamin D test. That much sunshine, 28 hours a week. I know Mary did a test on vitamin D. She flunked it. It wasn't as low as yours. As low as yours is concerning. When it comes to 11 international units, first thing I do is repeat it. And I think you said you've done it a couple of times. So, that may be enough to decide you have a problem. The next thing I think about is, are you overweight?
She said 20. She did say 20 pounds.
Well, vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin, so body fat sucks it up. So it artificially lowers the vitamin D in the blood. The other thing is do you have any chronic illnesses? Or, do you have rheumatoid arthritis or other autoimmune diseases? Obesity would be one of those diseases, diabetes. When you have chronic inflammation, then one of the byproducts of inflammation, one of the proteins that's made, suppresses the activity or suppresses the level of vitamin D in the bloodstream. So as long as you're chronically ill, you don't get an accurate level. So start out with, first of all, you should never be checking them. It's called the sunshine vitamin. You should be out in the sun. You should be getting plenty of sun. And if you're not, the next best choice is a tanning booth that's set for sunshine ultraviolet radiation. That's the next best. Then after that, you would take fewer than 1,000 international units of D a day. And that would cover all bases. You're not going to miss by doing those things. But repeat the vitamin D level, see what happens when you correct those issues.
I never heard you say that if you're overweight, it sucks up the vitamin D before.
Well, it's a fat soluble vitamin. You know this because your vitamin D levels last all year long. So what you get on your 2 weeks in summer vacation reflects your vitamin D levels all year. So if you spend 2 weeks in the sun in Hawaii in the summer and you get a nice bit of sunshine, that will reflect how much your vitamin D levels are the rest of the year. It's fat soluble. It's stored in the body fat. They've determined this in submariners, people who take these atomic subs under the ice caps for like 14 months, and they have no sun exposure at all. And they measure the vitamin D levels, and they find that the half-life, I believe, is every 3 months. The vitamin D levels are cut in half which gives them plenty of vitamin D through the whole year. No problem at all, So it's stored in body fat, and the fatter you are, the more you're going to have the capacity to store vitamin D.
Interesting. Here's a really fun question from Kathy. It might be a different answer now than when you lived in Santa Rosa, but she says, what do you give trick-or-treaters on Halloween? I can't have candy in the house. Apples will be tossed away, and toothbrushes will get my house egged.
All right, I get it. I understand. Well, I can only think back of kids and grandkids when we used to deal with it. We gave out Halloween candy. I don't know what we tried to get some healthier candy. I know we did that. I can't remember what brand we got. But yeah, look, this is a holiday, okay? People throughout ages, throughout all of history, have had festival occasions when they've done things unusual. They've danced in the streets. They've taken off their clothes. They've had unusual relationships. They celebrated the birth of something. They're called holidays, all right? They're like Easter and Christmas and Thanksgiving and your birthday. That's what got me in trouble with the vegans, is to tell them you could have rich foods on special occasions. I still say that. Maybe I would say you should have rich vegan foods on these special occasions, which is what I would do at most. I think that would be an answer that was more close to what I would say today. But the rest of the population, look, we're talking about 90% of the people don't want to be vegan, okay? They find it an offensive term. So what are you going to do? You're just going to cast them aside and say, well, heck with them. They won't buy into my vegan idea. Or should I let the planet go to hell by convincing them to do better than they're doing? You eat half the animals you're eating right now. Will you please, world? I'm not into this religion of veganism. I know you're upset with me because you want me to be a vegan. Well, I am. All practicality, I have been for 40 years. Better vegan than 99% of you, even those of you who said you're vegan. I even have a car that has vegan seats and steering wheel in it. Top that one, huh?
Nice. Well, what about toys?
I had to wait. The first time I bought this car, I had to wait 3 weeks to get the vegan seats. And I said, I don't want the leather ones. I'm done, man. I'm gonna wait 3 weeks or whatever time. Maybe it could have been 3 months, but I wanted vegan seats. And so I delayed getting the car for, probably 3 months. I think it was 3 months I had to wait. These days, that's all they sell is vegan seats in the car that I buy.
Nice. What about toys like from Oriental Trader? Do kids like toys these days or?
I don't know. They like candy. I don't. I mean, look, Halloween is a time of the year when you go around, you beg candy from people.
My advice is
along, will you? Geez, if you want to have turkey on Thanksgiving.
If I read her question,
and she's go down as a bad person in my book.
If I'm understanding her question, she can't have candy in the house because maybe it's a trigger. So maybe there's a type of candy she doesn't like because I just buy something I really don't like that's vegan.
Oh, then the kids don't like it, and then you're really in trouble.
Well, no, they did. It was like jelly beans. It was like Jelly Belly jelly beans. So I can't eat that kind of food, and so it didn't bother me. And we only bought enough.
I don't know. Mary, do you know what we used to give out on Thanksgiving or on Halloween?
Halloween.
I don't know. She doesn't remember, but we gave out something healthier, peanut butter bars or something.
Yeah. Well, also, or you could just go out that night and turn your lights off and just go to the movies. But
I was going to say that's what we do these days. These days we haven't had kids in the house for 15, 20 years. It's been a while. So these days we just turn off the lights. We are not in a trick or treat neighborhood.
Yeah, so I unfortunately am now. So we'll figure out. Actually, I have a class that night, so I'm off the hook. So this question is from Sandra, and she says, Dr. McDougall, I would like some clarification on drinking silicon-rich water, such as Fiji, to help eliminate aluminum from the body. I believe you said 8 ounces a day is enough. Does it matter if it's on an empty stomach or with food? Should I drink it all at once or throughout the day? I drink filtered tap water the rest of the day. Are there any guidelines, or can I just drink it whenever I want?
Well, I think you can drink it whenever you want. And it's silica, not silicon.
That's what she wrote. I'm just reading what she wrote, but okay, thanks.
All right, it's silica. It's a difference. And you'll find silica drinking waters. There has been some clarification I've gotten on this whole silica thing. And, I presented it correctly when I gave you the presentation about it being an organic silica compound called silica. And, I still have to have in my own mind some clarification of what's going on, but I'm pretty confident the silica waters that are being sold fit the criteria that's discussed, which it has 86 milligrams per bottle. Okay. That's what you remember the brand of water I showed.
It wasn't Fiji? Wasn't it Fiji?
That was Fiji. It's Fiji. Thank you. Yeah. It had 86 milligrams per bottle. And they did studies where 10 milligrams per day was enough to show changes in Alzheimer's patients. So, I think the research is weak, but it doesn't do any harm. It doesn't cost you anything. And there's enough science there to say if this will do you more good than harm. So, there hasn't been a lot of debate on it because there's not been a lot of economic consequences to making decisions. Believe me, when the silica water companies take over a portion of the, what is it, limbic? Lequimbi. That's the new drug for Alzheimer's, Lequimbi. Until they start hitting into that market, which is $26,000 a year for a drug that barely does anything, except give you a 20% chance of having a brain bleed and brain edema. That's what Lequimbi does for you, these new Alzheimer's drugs. So anyway, when the silica bottled water industry gets into competition, starts taking a cut in the Lequimbi business, $26,000 a year per patient. Then there's going to be a lot of research on the subject, a lot of spinning going on and so on. But for now, I think you should believe that. So I wouldn't present it to you if I didn't think it was worth you knowing that one bottle of Fiji water has 86 milligrams of silica, and you need 10 milligrams a day to help unburden your body of aluminum. So I don't know whether you're drinking it with meals or drinking it all day long and it makes any difference. I don't know that. But later on, when they do the studies, when they get really concerned about silica water, those Lequimbi people, they're going to get really upset. They're going to make sure that you know how wonderful their product is, how inadequate the Fiji water is. They'll do that. Put up some big flashy ads at someplace for you. It's business.
Thank you. This is from Joe. What do you and Mary think of using microwave ovens for cooking? I use my microwave for almost every meal.
Well, microwave, you don't want to have a leaky microwave. And you can actually buy testers that test the microwave that is leaking from your oven. Might be a good idea, particularly if you have a pacemaker. They say that, I don't know whether it bothers pacemakers or not, but there's been a whole bunch of rumors. See, the microwave oven has been suspicious because it's new age technology. But in studies comparing cooking with microwave as opposed to conventional radiant heat, there's no difference in the quality of nutrients. We use microwave in our home, I don't think ever for cooking, but it's only because of Mary's cooking techniques. I mean, if we have a prepackaged meal, which we do on occasion, then we'll put it in the microwave. But it's mostly for heating things, heating our tea in the morning and heating, packaged meals or leftovers from the night before, leftover soup and bread and so on. It's really a common thing for us to stick for a couple, 30 seconds, 60 seconds in the microwave. So yeah, we find a microwave very convenient. We'd hate to be without one. In fact, we own two of them. So.
Yep. Thank you. And this is from, who is this from? Andrea says, what do you think about CBD, such as CBD oil in tea or CBD sparkling water? I've heard good things since it doesn't have THC, so it doesn't get you high, but I'm wary of any substance and haven't seen much research on its effect.
You're asking the wrong person. I have not made it one of my medical issues to study marijuana or the effects of cannabis on people, THC or CBD or any of the other alkaloids. Just not my interest in terms of study or becoming an expert. So you probably know more about it than I do. I come from the 70s where the consequence of marijuana was jail. And believe me, those kind of thoughts don't leave easily. I'm sure many of you out there that are my age group, the first thing you think about marijuana is you're going to get in trouble. It's illegal. But it's not. It's legal in a good share of the states across the country. They're talking about making it federally legal because it does maybe more good than harm. Certainly, there's some adverse effects. I mean, the smoking alone is irritating the lungs and will likely lead to emphysema. So, and as far as its ranking in order of harmful drugs I've seen as a doctor, it's way low as far as its harm caused. Compared to alcohol, it's basically almost nothing. So that's about all I know about it.
Cool. I just saw a question here. Hold on.
But anyway, yeah, fine. Let's go on to another talk. I'm still from the 70s. I hate to talk about marijuana or any illicit drugs because, basically that's how we lived our life in fear.
Oh, gosh.
The government from persecuting people for using plants. But that was the age, and it hasn't, the memory hasn't left me. It's still a stain on my cortex.
Funny.
Is associated. I don't know whether you can relate to this or not, but
Yeah. Here's another GI question, a topic you know so much about, from Nancy. What might be the cause of a gallbladder with a slow ejection fraction, and how might I speed it up? On an HIDA scan, -10, normal is 35 to 75.
well, you know what I'm going to say. The consistency of the fluid in the gallbladder depends upon what you eat. The gallbladder stores the excretory and metabolic products of the liver. So the liver takes blood from the whole body, all right? And the blood goes through the liver. It is a purifying organ. It takes out toxic substances. In addition, it's an organ where it makes metabolic substances such as bile acids. And it excretes things that are toxic from the body, including cholesterol. Okay, so the liver deals with all these things: cholesterol, poisonous elements, and the production of bile acids. And that all gets dumped into the gallbladder. The gallbladder is a sac for storage. See, from the liver, you have a tube called the common bile duct, which goes down into the small intestine. And what it does is it causes bile acids to go in the intestine and to digest the fats. That's what bile acids do, is they digest fats. Well, between meals, when you don't have food in your intestine, it would be good to have a storage sac. And that storage sac's the gallbladder. So there's a sphincter called ODI, O-D-I, and he or she closes down at the intestinal wall. So it closes down so the fluid backs up into the gallbladder, and it's stored there. And depending upon the composition of the gallbladder and the health of the gallbladder muscles will depend upon how well the squirting mechanism works, how forcefully it can squirt the bile out of the gallbladder. And if you have a sick gallbladder, inflamed gallbladder, or you have a viscous fluid in the gallbladder fluid, then you're going to have trouble getting this to squirt out. And that's what the test measures. It measures not a healthy gallbladder, not a healthy constituents of the gallbladder fluid. So how do you fix that, huh? Well, every doctor knows, or they should. I mean, I'm sure 95% of them do know this, that gallstones are due to supersaturation of the bile with cholesterol. Gallstones are made of cholesterol. Yeah. And how many people have gallstones? Well, about 40, 50% of women in their 40s. So what happens if you don't eat cholesterol? You make some cholesterol, but you're able to get rid of that cholesterol. The liver can handle that. But if when you eat it, it can't handle the extra, so it has to store it. Well, some of it is in gallbladder fluid, which is excreted from the body into the toilet. But other is stored in the arteries and in the skin and in the tendons. So you have heart attacks, and you have xanthomas and xanthelasma and other things that are due to cholesterol deposits in various parts of the body. So if you want your gallbladder to squirt better, you need to make the gallbladder muscle healthier and the fluid less viscous. And you know how to do that, right? Maybe we should take a second and tell people what I'm talking about in terms of diet. The diet I recommend is this. It's 2 sentences, okay? And it always goes by, I like to precede these 2 sentences by a statement that, I've learned in life's lessons. And that is that truth is simple and easy to explain. Okay? The McDougall diet is a diet based on starches with the addition of fruits and vegetables. 1 sentence. The McDougall diet does not contain animal parts of any kind, and no free oils. 2 sentences. So it's a starch, you have things like rice and corn and beans and oatmeal, bread and pasta, and fruits and vegetables. They're things you love anyways. You just throw a bunch of dead animals in it because you think that makes it better. It doesn't. It's disgusting.
That's funny.
Drink a glass of olive oil for me once, will you please? I was just running across this slide because I'm getting ready for the presentation next Sunday. And one of the challenges I've had for people who said, "Oh, I can't give up my olive oil." Oh, here's a glass of olive oil. It's only 4 ounces. Drink it.
You can't.
You'll be in the bathroom throwing up by the end of 2 ounces. It's disgusting. The oils are disgusting.
Why do people say it's delicious and they love it so much?
It's because the oil acts as a vehicle to get the sugar to stick to the donuts and the salt to stick to the French fries and potato chips. That's why they use it. It's the only reason they put it on. You certainly don't need to add more calories. 46% of the people in Saudi Arabia, the women, 46% are obese. They don't need more fat to wear. So, Chef AJ, they've tried, in my lifetime to make fat-free chips. I've never seen fat-free French fries, but fat-free chips. I guess dry, what are the kind of cooking you use, a freeze dryer or something. I don't know what it is. What kind of cooking is that? It's
what do you mean? What kind of cooking?
You and Mary differ on. You use a certain type of heat oven to cook things dry.
Oh, you mean like the air fryer? The air fryer?
Air fryer, there you go.
Oh, I love it.
You can make French fries with an air fryer, so you know how to do it. But they never become popular. Oilless potato chips have never become popular. So there must be a mouthfeel, a familiarity that causes people to go back to things that make them die, sick, stinky, greasy, obese. I don't know.
Okay, I think you're going to like this question.
You understand? Every time I'm going to get my hair cut before I go to this presentation on Sunday, and every time I go to the hairdresser, I will ask, and I've done this with many hairdressers. I've said, "Have you ever noticed the difference in oiliness of the hair of people?" "Oh, drastic," they say. Of course, my hair is very, very dry on a relative basis. And I said, "Why do you think that happens?" They have no idea. Maybe genetics. The fat you eat is the fat you wear on the skin as well as on the hair.
That rhymes. That rhymes. The fat you eat is the fat you wear on the skin and on the hair.
I like it. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, it is acne's not pretty. I'm sorry. I don't think. You got a bunch of obese people running around telling you how fat is beautiful. I don't think you're going to have a bunch of teenagers running around telling you that these sores all over their face are beautiful. That's stretching my imagination too far. Maybe you can get me to think that it's beautiful to be obese. I don't think so, but maybe you can. But you try and tell me that walking around crippled over because your heart is so impaired you can't go any more than 4 or 5 feet. You tell me that's attractive. That's desirable. Having to shoot yourself with insulin every day or Ozempic every day, that makes you more attractive, desirable. I don't think so. But we could have a club there. I think we do. I think we have an Ozempic club worldwide. I know we do. These people brag to each other. They have clubs. They tell people where they can buy this stuff. Wegovy and Ozempic and anyway. Yeah, this is a movement. The drug company has to be thrilled. And all you have to do is eat potatoes and rice and corn.
Nobody believes it until they do it and it works.
Always works. That's the thing. It's not like I have to say, well, 70% of you can expect benefits. No, I don't have to say that. I can say 100% of you should expect benefits. You got to be coming from a bad place. I hate it. I used to hate it when people would come to my office and they would have a complaint. And the first thing they start out with, just like a couple of the callers do, first thing they started out with is, "I've followed the McDougall diet strictly for 40 years. Now, will you fix A, B, or C?" And I'll go, "It just kind of blew my whole performance. That's all I know is the food." Now I don't, I have to resort back to some of my original training to figure out some, tricks of the trade to help you with some other options. But most of my And most of my medicine is food. Food doesn't work, I like the rest of the bunch of doctors. I got this one food card. Happens to be the big one though.
What do you say to people and say, I tried a vegan or a plant-based diet and I got sick or it failed me? Are they just not doing it right? Or are there some exceptions?
Again, a plant-based diet needs a lot of things. I think I've told you about, I think I talked about it last night on the show. We do a show every Sunday night, by the way,
The link is in the chat.
Yeah. On Sunday night, Mary and I and Heather get together at 5:00 Pacific time every Sunday night. So we talked about my friend Jeff. I didn't give you his last name, but I know it. Jeff, who was my intern, and it's the first vegan I ever knew. And I'm serious, he wouldn't kill a fly. That joke is, I wouldn't kill a fly. Well, he wouldn't kill a fly. He wore nylon belts and plastic shoes. He was a pure vegan. And Jeff, who was my friend and my intern when I was a resident at the Queens Medical Center, suppose you could look it up and figure out who he was. He was fat and greasy and full of acne, because his vegan diet was a diet of chips, potato chips, the greasy ones, and Coca-Cola. That's what he lived on. So don't talk to me about a vegan diet. I don't know what a vegan diet is. You can talk to me about a starch-based diet with fruits and vegetables, which easily can and should be vegan. But I don't know what a vegan diet is. Is it fake cheese and tofu hot dogs? Throw in a little bit of corn oil. That's why I don't call it a vegan diet. I don't call it a vegetarian diet. I don't call it a whole food, plant-based, whole whatever.
You call it a starch-based diet, right?
Because that's what you need to eat is starch. Why waste words? Words are so precious. Why would you waste words when they don't describe exactly what you want somebody to do? This is a starch-based meal plan. You eat most of your food is starch: rice, corn, potatoes, beans, pastas, breads, oatmeal, things you love.
Yep. You're going to love this question then, because it's sort of interesting because of what you just said from Tanya. She said, Dr. McDougall, how many vegetables are minimum per day that you'd recommend? I love veggies and I've been eating maximum weight loss without sugar, oil, salt for over 12 years. And I used to eat 4 to 6 pounds of veggies per day because I truly love them. That said, I have a severe pelvic organ prolapse and I find that the bulky diet I eat is making my symptoms so much worse. I find some relief if I stick mostly to wet starches like steamed sweet potatoes or potatoes with no or very minimal veggies during the day and try to limit my veggies to the evening meal. That amounts to me only eating 1 to 1.5 pounds of veggie per day at most. Is this sufficient? Is it okay to eat mostly starches? Do the McDougalls ever eat starch-only meals with no vegetables?
Rarely. Almost always. Like we had baked potatoes 2 nights ago with broccoli. So Mary usually fixes green and yellow. How much do we have? I probably had three flowerets of broccoli.
Really? That's interesting. Just 3 little.
Yeah, and the rest was baked potato. You can live on underground storage organs alone. These are plant parts that grow below the ground. They're like sweet potatoes, bulbs, potatoes, corns, roots. They have all the vitamin C and vitamin A that you need. Above ground storage organs, in other words, they grow above the ground, would be legumes, your beans, peas, and lentils, and your grains like corn and wheat and rice and so on. Above ground storage organs are deficient in vitamin A and C. So you have to add enough A and C. And I will tell you, you can accomplish that easily by a slice of orange a day, a flowerette of broccoli a day. Once you've supplied all of the raw material you need, why would you add more than you need? It's not going to push the machinery any harder. Okay, I like to give the analogy of a car. I used to work on car engines with my dad. He was big into the automobile. And we rebuilt an engine. Actually, we rebuilt it. We had to replace the cylinders and two spark plugs for every cylinder. But all we needed was 12 spark plugs for 6 cylinders. What if I drilled an extra hole in the engine crankcase and stuck an extra spark plug in it? I mean, after all, it just takes 2 spark plugs to ignite all of the fuel in a cylinder. What if I put a 3rd spark plug in? I already ignited all the fuel with 2 spark plugs. What if I put a 3rd one in? I would have a hole in the cylinder is what I'd have, a totally non-functional hole. At best, it may be a weak area that allows the cylinder to burst. So once you get enough A and C from, say, the little bit of orange or a little bit of broccoli, what's it going to accomplish by eating 1.5 pounds of anything? You've already supplied the raw materials. Get on with it. You can't force the system to work better than it's ideally designed to work. Once you give it the raw materials it needs, it performs like it should. Just like 12 spark plugs in a 6-cylinder engine. 18 doesn't make it work any better. So anyway, I would say that. The other thing is intestinal problems are a big deal for people who eat non-starchy green and yellow vegetables, like broccoli and cauliflower and kale and lettuce. You get grumbly stomach. They're uncomfortable. It's hard. It's a really tough time to convince people that what they need to eat mostly is starch. That's why I've sacrificed everything by calling it a starch-based diet. My editors came to me when I wrote the book in 2011. We published it, and they said, "You're cutting off your nose to spite your face by calling it the starch solution." I said, I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to do that because I need to use the proper words to communicate to people what they should do. I'm not going to call this a whole food plant-based diet. A whole food plant-based diet. What is that? Kale and broccoli and a couple of pears. Excuse me. This is a starch-based. All populations of people have lived on starch. They needed the energy. They needed the protein, the vitamins, the minerals. They could only get that by eating starch. Well, comfortably by eating starch. On a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a yearly basis by eating starch. They may be able to get along for a while. No, I don't think so. The ground can't produce enough green and yellow vegetables to supply the calorie needs of our population. Only starch can do that. You're not going to be able to go grow enough broccoli to feed the world or kale. Where are you going to get the calories from? You get it from starch. Anyway, you've identified the source of your intestinal trouble. Now you need to take action. Get the starch in the diet, get it to be, well, I say 90%. Mary says 70%. But see, I'm looking at it from a little different point of view than she is. I'm looking at it from the calories consumed. She's just looking at the gross food on the plate. She's looking at the size of the broccoli or the size of the potato. And then she says, well, it's really 70%, but most of it's starch. 90%. So go for 90%, then you won't miss.
Good. Thank you. Here's an interesting question from Terry. Why is seafood so bad? I love crab, lobster, and shrimp.
Yeah. Well, do you like it without the salty butter and the spicy cocktail sauce on it? I mean, do you eat it plain? I don't think so. In my days of eating sea life, most of it was not so pleasant. You ever heard of the term a fishy smell? Okay, why do you think that the terminology has become commonplace? A fishy smell, a fish odor. It's because it stinks. You got to cover it up to make it palatable. Or it could be very bland. A lot of the shellfish are quite bland in their taste. So when you say you really like eating crab and lobster, etc., do you really? Or do you like the cocktail sauce? If you just like the cocktail sauce, then put it over lettuce. It'd be just as good. Anyway, we got a problem here, and that is that we have lost the oceans. Back when I was a kid, when I was 12 years old, I started scuba diving with my dad. And at that time, there were a lot of fish. And today they report that 90% of the sea life is gone. I've enjoyed the ocean tremendously. I've been scuba diving, I've been windsurfing, I've been sailing ocean-going sailboats. I've just really loved the ocean, and I miss it. And what I hear out there is things are really terrible. So stop eating the fish. But if you don't have that attitude, you're still going to eat the fish. You better hurry up and get it, because it's almost gone. And pretty soon you're not going to be able to afford it or find it. It's been wiped off the planet.
Thank you. Here's a question from an 80-year-old person named Loopy. And she says, what do you do for terrible and constant pain and inflammation in every joint? She's had no dairy, no gluten, no animal products for years, but her adrenals cannot enough cortisol. She can't get off prednisone. When she cuts down on biologics, pain is unbearable.
Yeah,
What
well,
do?
AJ, she may be a failure in terms of dietary approaches to autoimmune diseases. And these inflammatory arthritis, which is what she has, no matter what else she calls it, it's an inflammatory arthritis. These are diseases only of Western civilization. They didn't occur at one time in rural Africa, for example, or rural Asia. There just weren't any. When they started eating the Western diet, they became, well, I'm not sure they're epidemic yet, but they're pretty darn common. So until you have done what I recommend, you cannot declare yourself a failure. So you start out with the basic McDougall diet, and at the same time, you go on a gluten-free diet, just to cover two bases, because gluten causes the gut to become leaky. So you go on the McDougall diet, starches, vegetables, and fruits without wheat, barley, and rye. And then the next step is to go on the elimination diet. And that's described in my May 2014 newsletter. Towards the end, it talks to you about the diet that's least likely to cause you inflammatory arthritis. You need to follow this diet for 4 months before you declare defeat. 4 months. That's nothing compared to the decades you've gone through with suffering, with the drugs, with the pain, the expense, side effects. 4 months. So you go on the elimination diet for 4 months. It tells you how to add things back, etc. And at the end of 4 months, yeah, you can declare yourself a failure or a non-cure or whatever. But there aren't going to be many of you. Most of you will be very pleased with the results you've got. Now, the other thing you have to consider is there is probably a tremendous amount of destruction that has occurred in the past decades from your inflammation. So you've got crooked joints, you've got damaged joints. They're not going to go back. They're not going to straighten out. They're not going to be like you were when you were a little girl. It's not going to happen. They're going to stay crooked. They're going to stay deformed. They're going to stay probably painful, but there won't be any inflammation in them. You won't see the red, hot joints that you did before. That's the difference. So, why don't you give that a try and give us a call back in 4 months. Let us know how you've done. This is all described. In fact, there's a nice video that AJ and I did called McDougall and Autoimmune Diseases that tells you exactly what to do there. It's on YouTube.
Yeah.
Most of the subjects, thanks to Chef AJ, we went through a campaign last year where I asked her, I said, can we present McDougall's medicine? And I did this for the first time with Chef AJ and you folks. You provided the audience that was so necessary for me to give a lecture. I don't talk well in front of a plain screen. I like to, even though you're a little bit farther away than a plain screen, I at least know you're there and listening. So I gave about 10 lectures on heart disease, diabetes, cancer, obesity, etc. And they're on the website. And you can watch all those. That's McDougall's medicine. What I've done is I've refined those. And I've gotten them down to 5 2-hour lectures. And they're good. And they're for sale. You can buy them on our website. And they're called McDougall's Medicine, A Challenging Second Opinion. It's my life's work. It's 58 years of medicine for me. It tells you how I take care of people. And if that's the way you like to be cared for, what you do is you get this information either free on YouTube or you get the series. And you sit down with your doctor and say, look, doc, I'll pay you $1,000 to watch this. I mean, you're going to charge me $30,000 for an angioplasty. You're going to charge me $300,000 for open heart surgery. I'll give you $1,000 to watch this video. And you tell me I should have heart surgery. I guarantee you they won't, or they'll lie. And you'll have all the evidence to catch them in their lies. So anyway, that's the service I've tried to provide.
Thank you. This is an interesting question from Angela, and she's wondering if her being too thin could have contributed to her diagnosis of osteopenia. She says she's 5'4" and 95 pounds. She's been following the McDougall diet for 20 years and is wondering if the thin weight, the low weight could contribute to that diagnosis that was diagnosed through a DEXA scan.
Yes.
52.
Yeah. She's 52. Okay. Yeah, it could. Being trim, you would get a lower value on a DEXA scan because you don't have the body fat for the protons to go through. Also, being thin, you have a lower amount of estrogen in your body. But what you have to understand is that the bone mineral density test just tests the number of minerals, the amount of minerals in your body. It doesn't test the strength of the bones. It doesn't test directly whether or not you're going to have a fracture. It's just a loose association between the bone mineral density test results and your risk of a fracture. And let me tell you how it works, and it works against you. Yes, if you are younger, in other words, you have estrogens produced by your ovaries, you'll have stronger bones. And then when you go through menopause, your ovaries quit working and your estrogen production is decreased. So you end up having weaker bones. That's why older women have osteoporosis. But it's not as dramatic of an effect as you would expect. In other words, God does not abandon women and give them a set of bones that are so fragile that they wouldn't last for a lifetime. That's not the way it is. What changes is the amount of mineral in your bones, and it's supposed to change. You'll find all this information if you go to the website, you look under hot topics, you look under medical topics, you look under osteoporosis. The first article is all about this. And what it talks about is how when you're in your reproductive years, you store about 2 pounds of mineral in your bones for the baby, to grow the fetus, to feed the baby with breast milk. 2 pounds of mineral you store. In the matrix of the bone, it acts as a storage depot. Now, if you have more matrix, you're likely to have more calcium because you got more places for it to be stored. But the strength of the bone doesn't depend upon the amount of mineral directly. Strength of the bone has to do with the fibrous tissue, the tissue that's made of protein and sugars and, some fats. And it's tissue. The example that I give that helps people understand this is, remember when you were in school and you're old enough, you were in school and they had a blackboard and you wrote on the blackboard using chalk. Chalk is pure calcium carbonate. What happened when you pushed too hard on the chalkboard with your chalk? Of course, it's splintered into all kinds of. Yeah, well, see, that's what the high mineral density will offer you is a highly fragmented bone or a highly fragile bone. Well, remember the days when you used to go to Kentucky Fried Chicken and you'd finish chewing all the flesh off the wing or the leg, and you had a bone in your hand, you did. And you could bend it and twist it, and maybe even tie it in a knot. It was so flexible and strong. See, that's tissue. That tissue can stay with you in good health for a lifetime. As I said, God didn't design women to last 85 years and have them fall apart at 52. That's not the way the plan works. So what do? Well, you do the things that people are supposed to do that cause them to have better health. You get a little exercise, not dangerously, safe, moderate exercise. Get some sunshine, absolutely crucial. And you eat a low acid diet because the acid in meat and dairy products causes the bones to dissolve, really dissolve. I mean, the tissue dissolves. You actually find the tissue in the urine, not just the calcium. You find the tissue in the urine. So you dissolve this organ that supplies alkaline material to neutralize the acid. That's how you get osteoporosis. So stop doing those things. Anyway, there are reasons for you to have a lone bone mineral density test. One, you have low estrogen. Two, you've been through menopause. You're 52 years old, so estrogen is even lower. Three, you're thin. So you're going to have a lower reading because you're thin. So I think you're looking at a test that is causing you more harm than good. The test is. What are you going to do about it? You're going to take drugs that increase your risk of fractures, increase your risk of bone necrosis in the jaw, decreases your risk of, well, all kinds of side effects of these bisphosphonates.
Cool. This is kind of a fun question from Nadine. Dr. McDougall, can you explain exactly what happens inside your body after you eat a big portion of pizza or a Big Mac and fries along with a chocolate shake?
Well, you're asking me to remember 50 years ago. I think the last time I had that, I was 26 or 27 years old, probably 26. So it's probably 50 years ago. So I don't remember.
No, but I think she means like physiologically, like what happens. Because I'm like, you
Well,
remember,
you get all this grease all over your body for one thing. It's my whole discussion of what goes on in the body. I don't know where to start. Do you start with the poor circulation of the brain? Do you start with supplying aluminum to the brain so it develops Alzheimer's? Do you supply fat and cholesterol over the arteries to clog them all up? You're eating a whole bunch more protein than you should eat, which damages the kidneys and the liver. I mean, where do you start? I don't know where to start. But you see, this is the problem, AJ, is you don't die after a single meal of a whole pepperoni pizza or a double cheeseburger. This is slow death. I mean, if you drop dead from a heart attack after one bite, you wouldn't do that. It's just like with smoking. You know, it takes 40, 50 years to give you lung cancer or emphysema that kills you. If you ended up on a respirator after the first cigarette, you wouldn't do it. Same thing with alcohol. Every time you took a drink, you fell down and cracked your skull open, you wouldn't do it. See, most of the time you stay upright, so you think it's not harmful. It's slow death. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm probably missing the question because I can't give you the answer.
You know what I think she means is, well, do you remember when Dr. Clapper talked about when he was an anesthesiologist and one night he had to draw the blood himself and the patient literally had just had a fast food meal, and when he got it in the test tube, he could just see like it was just like all fat.
Yeah. Well, that came from a documentary that was done at my program at St. Helena Hospital. That was from a documentary, Dr. Clapper and I think John Robbins was involved in that. What we did is we filmed my time at St. Helena Hospital and the hospital. And during that presentation, Dr. Clapper showed, I don't know if it was from our lab or video that you buy, but it showed the formation of blood fats that occur as soon as you take the syringe out of the arm. You do this, you take blood from a person, all right? You draw the blood, it looks red. Well, even before they take the needle out of your arm, you start to form a little layer of blood, of fat on top. But you don't notice it. Whereas somebody with really high triglycerides, before they take the needle out of the arm, the bottom half is red, which is blood cells, and the top half is greasy yellow, it's fat. Now, after a time, you set the blood, even your blood, on the counter, and you let the blood cells settle by gravity to the bottom of the test tube. Then you see this layer of fat. And the more fat that you eat, the bigger the layer. So maybe that's what you're talking about. Anyways, that was a video done at my clinic that we did 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah, that was really interesting. Here's an interesting question about triglycerides from John, because he says he wants to stay on the dietary principles you recommend, but that his job has a lot more physical activity than most. He is, I believe, a drummer. He's 5'10", 155 pounds with great blood pressure. And he needs, for the energy, a lot more fruit that you recommend. He takes 5 to 10 servings of fruit. And because he's a personal trainer and a professional drummer, he's physically active all day. So he needs more simple carbs to function optimally in the form of fruit and table sugar. However, he has higher triglycerides when he eats that much fruit, of 160 to 180. Every time he does blood work, when he limits fruit, it goes down to 145. He doesn't know how to be, he's fatigued without all the sugar and fruit. So the question is can he lower his triglycerides in any other way? And how harmful is it to have higher triglycerides? If somebody—
Well, triglycerides are an associated observation with an increased risk of heart disease. It's not a strong association. It's not like cholesterol. Cholesterol is very predictive of your chance of having heart disease. Triglycerides not so predictive. So that's a problem. Also, really, really high triglycerides, like in the 1,000, 2,000 range, will sludge the blood so severely that you get pancreatitis. Could be fatal. So that could be a problem. I'm assuming that he's looking at triglyceride levels that are going up 30, 40, 50, 100 points.
Well, he
That
says
happens after you eat one meal.
180 was the number, and when he limits fruit, it's 145.
Yeah, well, see, that's all within normal range. What he's doing is it's like you go to school and you get an A+ on your report card. You got an A++. No, not really. It's not even that kind of association. You got an A on your report card with both values, 140, 180. Below 200 is, on most lab tests, perfectly normal. The fact that when you eat, they naturally go up. They go up when I eat. They go up when AJ eats. Everybody eats. Particularly if you eat sugars, they'll go up. And fats, fats will cause the triglycerides to go up too.
He was saying he had about 1 to 2 ounces of nuts and seeds a day as well.
Well, he needs the calories.
Yeah. I
assume he's a trim person. I eat nuts every day.
He said 5'10", 155.
Yeah, but he's pretty good. It's about these. Well, I'm a little lighter than he is, but not much. Anyway, yeah. I think he's doing everything right. He's worrying about details that don't deserve his attention. He's working within the physiologic boundaries of his own active life. And, like when we took care of Monica Seles, the tennis seed, she was #1 in the world. Back about 20 years ago, Mary and Heather went over to England, to Wimbledon, to take care of her. And I had to make her a drink that she could use on the tennis court. The drink was a kind of a Kool-Aid made of D-glucose, because that's what athletes use, runners, et cetera, to replace their sugar that they need to run, to play tennis. Or you take Carl Lewis. Carl Lewis was my patient when he set the record for the 100-meter dash. Fastest man in the world. Carl Lewis set the records for 3 long jumps that I think still are records today. Won marathons as an old man. He was in his 30s. The relay races he won in his 30s. So he followed the McDougall diet, but we had to add extra calories because, I can't imagine you have physical activity any greater than the fastest man in the world, Carl Lewis, running all day long with practice and then running competitive races on many occasions. You can't imagine your needs are any less or any more than his. So you need to add a little simple sugar to your diet, big deal. Nuts and seeds, keep the fat on, big deal. You have big calorie demands.
Well, you know what they say, a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine.
Well, sugar is tasty for a real important reason. We need sugar to survive. That's why our creator put the taste buds for sugar on the tip of the tongue. Right next to these taste buds, he put taste buds for starch. Yes, there are independent taste buds for starch. They don't taste simple sugars, like out of fruit or table sugar. They taste the sugars that are complexed into long chains called starch. They taste the sugars in potatoes and rice and corn, and they love them. On the tip of the tongue, they love them. That's why they put it at the tip of the tongue. So you'd go seek them. You are a seeker of sugar and starch. You have a taste bud on your tongue that is repulsive when it comes to fat. If you could taste fat, you won't eat it. That's what that taste bud says. You can't taste it, then you eat it and you get fat. Yeah, that's what was put on the tip of your tongue. Aren't you impressed with how the human body is made? I mean, you've ever stopped to think? I mean, as a doctor, I'm confronted with this all day long. The miracles, every step of the way, every organ, every cell, every internal mechanism. I'm just overwhelmed by what a creation we live in. If we, as a species, survive another 10,000 years, in 10,000 years, we won't have this organism figured out yet. I don't believe. How do I know? It's just so complex. It's so beautiful. It's just amazing. It always works. And if you know the basic stuff, everything else follows. If you are a believer that the human body was made correctly, you have to start there. If you start out with the idea that people are genetic defects, like doctors are taught to do. I mean, think about it. You go see your doctor says your problems are inherited. In other words, you're a genetic defect. Get out of my office. I can't fix genetic defects. If you start with that attitude, how can you help people? You have to start out with the attitude that people are an amazing design and that everything works right and there's a purpose for everything. There's no mistakes. And then you have to figure out what keeps this organism working well. Well, the development of the plant kingdom over 400, I don't know, I'm not even going to guess, long time, okay, billions of years. The development of the plant kingdom to support the animal life is one of the miracles of nature. And so I have to believe everything's there in plants because I don't know all the details. And so if you believe that and you believe that walking around a little bit's good for you and you believe sunshine's good for you, it's always there, then you got the 3 rules that work: clean air, clean food, clean water, 4 principles, and sunshine. You don't have to know anything else. But if you believe otherwise, you won't get well. You believe there's something wrong with you, you won't get well. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just that you're following the wrong set of rules. I can prove it to you in 12 days. Sure, I can. Remember the program.
Next program's in October.
It is. We're only running a couple this year because we're so busy. So they're going to fill up. But maybe next year we'll run some more. It depends on how Heather, she's got kids and, it's a lot of work for her, a lot of work for the whole staff. And so, we love giving them. We love putting the programs on, but it's just come to the point where we'll have to add some programs. I know we will. We'll add some. But in the meantime, it's free on the website. Or you can listen to Chef AJ. I tell you everything. I hold nothing back.
That's free. Thanks. Here's a question from Tiffany.
We were going to stop at an hour.
I know, but we can't. It's so much
fun. All right, keep going.
And you know what, Dr. McDougall? These are questions from way back when, because normally you give a presentation, and so we don't have time for these questions. So I'm sure that people are appreciating this because we email them when your question is answered. That's a service we have here.
Well, let's be sure to stop at 12, okay?
Okay, I promise, because that's lunchtime. Tiffany says, do you have any specific recommendations for water retention and swelling? I have an autoimmune disease that seems to be an ongoing issue. So she's wondering if you have any foods you recommend for that.
Well, let's start with the drugs. Drugs cause fluid retention, like, for example, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, steroids, corticosteroids. I would have to look up what the newer drugs cause as far as monoclonal antibody drugs, the new ones that are out there. And there's a whole bunch of natural killer cell inhibitors, a whole bunch of new drugs out for rheumatoid arthritis, inflammatory problems that I'd have to look up. I'd look up any drugs that she was on to see whether or not they cause swelling. Some swelling is due to salt. So you might cut way back in salt. I know this from my experiences flying on airplanes. I used to order a salty tomato juice, and I had trouble getting my shoes on at the end of the flight. So you cut way back on your salt intake. You improve your circulation by eating a healthy diet. You have problems with your circulation from the fat that you eat. So that would help. You may have had damage to your venous system through years of eating the Western diet. And you don't have good venous return. You got varicose veins and you get swelling for that. You may have had an operation. Like, for example, women get lymphedema in the arm that was operated on for the breast cancer. But I assume we're talking about generalized swelling. I think if you just follow a good diet, get a little exercise and sunshine, if it's going to correct, it'll correct. Just keep the salt out of your diet. Make sure you've checked your drugs out. Make sure they don't have swelling or edema as an adverse effect. I mean, most of you don't need to be on the drugs that you're on, even if you don't change your diet. Yeah, I know that as a practicing doctor, you shouldn't have been putting them on in the first place. The diabetic drugs, most of the blood pressure drugs, the cholesterol drugs. You should never prescribe them. And by the way, in time, each of the categories of drugs I've mentioned, the recommendations have been less glowing. In fact, we started out with a message from the statin industry about cholesterol that we ought to put statins in the drinking water. Now we're down to the point where we're not sure anybody should be taking statins. Maybe those people are really, really, really sick, and that's all. But certainly not people who have generally good health. The typical Americans, they shouldn't be on them. So, most of the drugs you don't need to be on. I'm not talking about changing your diet. And then you change your diet, and you've gotten rid of another big bucket of drugs because you cured the cholesterol, cured the blood pressure, cured the diabetes, which you'll do, by the way, when you change your diet, go for a walk and get some sunshine. Come on, where's the gimmick? Come on, give me the gimmick. Well, Chef AJ and I, we got some special tinctures that are coming out. We're going to be selling you. Only work when you eat potatoes. So for each $10.95 tincture bottle that you buy from us, you get to eat one baked potato.
Cool.
Distilled water. That's all we're giving them. Distilled water. We're not even going to put vitamins and minerals in it. We're going to ultimately sell them the gift that gives nothing.
Don't you ever wish you did start selling supplements, with your photo?
Yeah, there's some thought to that. I think the name of the company. Anyway, they had a compressed fruit. Do you remember what it was? It was really popular, AJ, about. Was it, Mary? Juice Plus.
Oh, yeah. They wanted you to be a distributor?
Yeah. There was like two or three owners, and they asked me to get involved, and I said, nah, violates my principles. So I probably lost $1 billion from that one. No, I'm not joking. I probably lost $1 billion. So, but I have no regrets. I could have probably found a way to spend $1 billion, but I'm not sure. I don't think so. When it comes to vitamins, when you've had enough, you've had enough. What do you need? What do you need a bunch of money for to stick in the bank that doesn't do you any good? Huh? Right, Mary? Mary says, no, I got to pay the bills. So
I have an idea for a marketing thing. How about like a bottle that looks like, a pill bottle, and it says McDougall's medicine, and you open it up and it's a potato.
How about just distilled water?
Yeah, exactly. That's funny. Okay, who do we have next? Oh, this is interesting because she says her name is Diane from Sacramento. So Diane, some of your questions can be answered in person. We have a conference in Sacramento it's sold out, but I think we're going to open up a few more seats on December 17th. Dr. John Scharfenberg speaking. Remember him, Dr. McDougall?
No, yes.
He's going to be 100 this year. We're going to have a birthday party for him in person. I would love for you to come. He's such a lovely man.
Yeah, well,
he's in the Netflix. Have you seen the Netflix documentary, Dan Buettner's? He's in that, Living to 100.
We're in the process of watching it right now, so no, I haven't seen it.
He's in the episode where they talk about the Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda.
Yeah, we're on episode 1 of that.
Yeah, nice. That's.
We'll finish it out and see him. But yeah, John Scharfenberg and I knew him when I was 25 years old.
Yeah.
So we were friends for probably 10 years.
Yeah.
It
He's,
just kind of grew apart because geographically we grew apart.
yeah,
But
he's
yeah,
sharp.
he wrote a statement on my first book, The McDougall Plan. You look at the McDougall Plan on the back of the book, John Scharfenberg wrote an endorsement. And believe me, back in those days, it was few and far between to get endorsements of a vegetarian diet. So I had to be very thankful I had a friend like John Scharfenberg.
Yeah, he's something. He is sharp as a tack. He drives a little red sports car. It's
Does he still drive?
Yeah, he drives. He prefers not to drive at night, but he will. But it's this adorable little red sports car. You know, he doesn't eat dinner though. It's so hard to socialize with him because as an Adventist, he's Friday night to Saturday night is out, and so he doesn't eat dinner. So we got to do lunches.
Yeah. Well, he's a pillar of truth. So
Yeah,
I'm glad to his friendship.
He likes you. He's remarkable. So anyway, Diane from Sacramento says, I've been diabetic for 10 years and take insulin. I'm in my 70s. Would I be able to safely go on the McDougall diet? How would insulin handle so many carbs eaten? I think she should do the McDougall program in October and she'd get guidance on how to do this.
Yeah, you really need you can find a doctor in the community that will take care of you. Say, she didn't tell me whether she was thin or obese or overweight, but I get a pretty good guess as to whether people need insulin based upon what they tell me, their history. If they've had a history of having type 1 diabetes, that's important. If they're thin, that's important because I think they're more likely in need of insulin with both of those circumstances. So after a little discussion with them, I will ask them first meeting of the program. I'll ask them to reduce drastically or to stop their insulin. Now, for every type 1 diabetic, I reduce the insulin dose by 1/3 to 1/2. Okay? In other words, you're only taking 1/2 to 2/3 of what you did take. If I didn't do that, you're likely to become hypoglycemic and fall over in your mashed potatoes. So you reduce the insulin the first night because the diet makes the insulin work more efficiently. And then what we do is we see how things happen the next couple of days because, the small doses of insulin will cover the basic issues. The body needs about 40 units of insulin a day. That's all. And anyway, even if you're totally insulin deprived, 40 units of insulin is going to supply it. So you check the next couple of days, see how they're doing. If they're having low sugar reactions, which they usually do, we reduce the insulin even faster and then stop the insulin completely. Sometimes I'll stop the insulin completely the first night. But again, I've been doing this for a long time. I always stop all the diabetic pills, always. And I leave them on insulin if it's necessary, if I think it's necessary. If they have type 2, I'm sure they have type 2, then we stop all the drugs the first day. If they're type 1.5, which means they may need some supplemental insulin, then we go a little bit more cautiously. And if they're type 1, in other words, they don't have any insulin production in their pancreas, they absolutely must have insulin. They'll die. So again, we're ready to help you at the 12-day program. So if you want to have Dr. Lim's advice and my overseeing what's going on, then join us for October. But if it doesn't work out for time and finances, I understand. Everything you need to do is free on the website. And I just told you how I take care of my patients. You talk to your doctor about he or she takes care of their patients. Yeah, it would be a learning experience for your doctor, you think. So if some doctor was comfortable about being a better doctor, that's another thing that disturbs me terribly, is the reaction I get from some of my colleagues. Where they take the attitude is, we're not gonna accept any evidence that's not double-blind controlled experiments. Well, the only thing you can double-blind control is drugs. How can you blind food? You can't. So actually, anything about food is out the picture. We won't accept it as evidence. My colleagues tell me that. We will only accept research that's done based on double-blind controlled experience. You can only blind drugs. You see, you put some capsules with a placebo in it, like table sugar, and another capsule with the drug in it. And you can't tell which capsules. They're blinded. And you give them to people, you see the reaction. Well, when you take the attitude, the only acceptable experiments are those that are double-blind controlled, then how are you going to study food? I mean, how can you make the food blind? Anyway, that's the attitude I get from a lot. But if you have a doctor who says, look, I think food's important, I'd like to learn about it. Well, the resource I'd send them to is me. I put these 5 lectures together for your doctor, primarily McDougall's Medicine, a challenging second opinion. You know, buy it for your doctor as a gift for Christmas. Believe me, you'll get the money back probably in the first time you get into trouble. And don't, because your doctor knows how to take care of you.
You know, it's interesting, this question from Jackie, because I always listen to your Sunday night show, maybe not right at 5, but always, you know, within 24 hours. And you talked about D. Manos, and she's saying what to do about chronic UTIs because she heard that low estrogen levels can contribute.
Well, you know, I've tried to use estrogen to help women with those kind of problems, and I've not had much success. But it's certainly something to try. You try a vaginal estrogen cream, which
they have pills now. They have pills now that are less goopy.
Yeah, they have vaginal tablets.
Yeah,
same thing. But anyway, you can try that and see if it helps. And I don't think there's any harmful. I prescribe estrogen, topical estrogens, tablets or creams to the skin and the vagina. I think they're quite valuable for women who want to fool Mother Nature. Mother Nature, look, I don't want to get into that. But anyway, those of you who want to have sex after 50 may want to avail yourself to estrogens because it will make the vagina stronger. All right, let's see. What was the question again?
Chronic UTI, because last night D. Manos came up.
Yeah, the question came up about D. Manos, and it kind of caught me off guard because I didn't remember what D. Manos was, but I did finally. And it's the sugar that's present in blackberries and cranberries, or all fruits, but concentrated in those. And I've been using that my whole career to treat urinary tract infections. Yeah. So yeah, I would use it. And then somebody sent me a double-blind controlled trial of using D. Manos as capsules.
And it worked? It was successful? Yeah.
Yeah, but why would you take the capsules when you got the fruit or the fruit juice? You know, especially if you're going to be doing it a lot. I don't know. I guess, you know, there's a place for the capsules.
Yeah. Well, it's also a little powder that you can take.
That would be the D. Manos, yeah.
Yeah. And it's not expensive.
Yeah. Give it a try.
Yeah.
Give it a try. It's probably easy. It's probably easier than taking a whole bottle full of cranberry juice, which is what you have to do. Now, that's hard. And I see no reason not to take the D. Manos pills. So, you know, that's settled. I've used it for 50 years in the form of cranberry juice and blackberry juice.
Cool. All right. This is from Kim, and she says, are there just certain people who will always need to consume a low fiber diet because of chronic gut issues? She's had IBS-D for around 7 years and has done a lot of ruling out of things, elimination, reintroduction, FODMAPs, et cetera, and she seems to react to everything.
Well, not that I've found. You know, I've not found anybody that benefits from a low fiber diet, or particularly the low fiber nature of the Western diet. I've taken care of people who have intermittent bowel obstructions. There's a big deal. They've had radiation or they've had surgery that causes adhesions so that their gut gets twisted and the flow of remnants of the food is stopped and they become obstructed. And they'll have to have an NG tube, nasogastric tube down their nose for a day or 2 or 3 or 4 to try and get the bowel to resolve itself and to get the swelling down so it starts flowing again. And if that doesn't work, sometimes they go in and they do surgery to help a problem that was caused by surgery. But anyway, the typical recommendation is for these people to eat no or low fiber. And I've had a chance to take care of a few, not a lot, maybe a dozen people in my career, and I put them on the McDougall diet. They didn't have any more bowel obstructions. And I think there's some literature that supports what I have to say. I'd have to look back and try and remember. But I've even done that circumstance with intermittent bowel obstruction. I always prescribe. Now, it could be that you're reacting adversely to some of the foods. Well, beans, peas, and lentils cause lots of gas. Don't eat them. That's not part of a bowel-friendly diet when you have cramps and gas, is to eat a gaseous food. Start with something simple. Start with, potatoes and water, or potatoes and a little bit of fruit or vegetable, and see how that goes for, say, the next 10 days. And you might be surprised, but until you do that test of eating simple, high fiber food, then you really haven't declared yourself incurable. So give it a try. And people are mixed up about fiber. Let me just end with this. They think fiber is like the bristles of a broom. In other words, scratches all the way through your intestinal tract. That's not what fiber is. Fiber is microscopic molecules. You can't hardly see them under a microscope. Okay, they're sugars that are, you can't see it. As far as I can remember, you can't see a sugar molecule except under an electron microscope. These are microscopic sugars. They don't scratch your bowel. They just persist in the transition of the food from the mouth to the anus. They persist, they're not digested. They're the same as starch. It's the same sugars that make up starch, but the linkages between the glucoses are not digestible by the human tract. So the non-digestible carbohydrates, chains of sugar, are called fiber. The digestible ones that have linkages that are broken up and you free the sugars to use are called starch. Amylose and amylopectin's the other name.
You talked about bowel obstructions or intestinal obstructions, and a different viewer named Pilar said that eating only cooked and peeled vegetables, she got very constipated. And does eating raw fiber like salads, can these cause intestinal obstructions?
I don't know that it can. I know it causes, just from people telling me, a lot of grumbling in their stomach, a lot of gas and indigestion in the intestinal tract, but I don't know that it causes obstruction.
Yep. Nice. Are you familiar with lipedema? Lymphedema is the stuff you get, say, when they do breast cancer surgery. That's most commonly the word comes up, lymphedema. They take out the lymph nodes. Yeah, but she said there's lipedema is confused with lymphedema. Are there two different things?
Lipedema. Well, lipedemia is the fat in the blood.
She said lipedema most often involves the buttocks, thighs, and calves.
How about hey, Mary,
is it a real thing?
I talk about the mattress and how it causes the dimpling in the thighs. What is it called? Cellulose. It's called cellulose.
Cellulose. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, it fixes whatever you called it, lipedemia. It's called in my mind, it's cellulose. And what it is this: you get this dimpling effect on the buttocks and thighs. And the reason you get a dimpling effect, it's similar to the way a mattress works. The bedding mattress is it's got this stuffing, which is the fat, and it's got these fibrous connections between the sheets of mattress. They got these. I don't know. There's a name for them, I'm sure. That they keep the mattress from becoming a big bulge. They stick the two areas together, and so by having these plugs that are in your mattress and the connection between the front and the back, they prevent the mattress from becoming totally disformed. Instead, you have something that looks like cellulose. That's because you've got fibrous threads between your skin and the underlying tissues that act like a mattress. And when you lose the fat, then you aren't overstuffing the mattress anymore, and the cellulose goes away. Always goes away. That was your question?
Yeah, well, she was worried, Wendy, that lipedema could lead to lymphedema.
I don't think so. No, they're not even connected. If I'm thinking of it the same way in terms of cellulose, a lipedema being cellulose. They have no connection that I'm aware of, except they all are connected to the Western diet, the rich Western diet.
So one sounds like it's more cosmetic.
They're totally unrelated. One has to do with the skin and the tendons underneath. The other has to do with the lymph system. The lymph system is a drainage system that's in the body, like the veins. Totally unrelated. I don't know how you'd make any connection between the two.
She said she read somewhere that one can cause the other. So, okay.
That's not aware of.
But it sounds like.
AJ, I learn something every day. And particularly on your shows, I always learn something. People are always there questioning me, and lots of things I don't remember, and lots of things I never learned. And there's quite a few things I should have learned. So,
but it sounds like the cosmetic one doesn't go away for some people, even when they lose weight, the dimpling.
Nah. Cellulose always goes away.
I don't know, because I'm skinny now, and I kind of have a little, I can't show it to you on the air, but I kind of have a little bit left. A little bit. I'll show it to you on Sunday. I'll show it to you at the.
Maybe you need to lose an extra 5 pounds. What do you think?
I can't. I'm a BMI 18. I can't go any lower.
Okay. Let me ask you something. If this is fat that is bulging out, and there are these strings of mattress material between the skin and the tendons, why do you think when you lose the fat you won't unstuff the mattress? Why do you think that?
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you told me your weight, and actually when I saw it, I thought well, I'm not going to say what I thought, but I'll tell you later.
You thought I still needed to lose more weight?
No, I'm not saying I love being on your show. I'm not going to say anything like that.
Dr. Lyle said I shouldn't lose any more and maybe even gain 3 pounds. This is interesting.
Well, if you want to get rid of the cellulose.
Oh my God. Well, I'm going to be going to True North. I'll do a water fast.
What do you think that bulging material is that you're describing on your legs?
It's not bulging. It's not on my legs. It's just on one butt cheek, and it's more like a dimpling. It's not really.
Maybe that's from sitting on one butt cheek too long. You destroyed some of the fat tissues, and now they turned into scars. It's just like somebody who's had liposuction. You end up with your butt cheek sucked in. That's what happened. You don't have cellulose. You got the result of sitting on your butt too long.
Oh, you're hilarious.
Damaging your buttocks. That's what happened to you.
I'm going to show it to you on Sunday, and then you can give me your professional.
If it's only in one cheek, it can't be systematic.
Okay. All right.
Systematic it's cellulose. It's got to be in your legs and both buttocks, not just one cheek. Maybe you drive your car just on one cheek, or you sit in front of your computer just on one cheek. I think you destroyed some cheek fat. And now you've got scar tissue on your butt, and you're telling me it's cellulose.
I don't know what it is, but it's unsightly. So when I work,
can we show it to everybody on Sunday night?
Well, no, because I don't think Scott Stoll would like that, but I can show it to you privately, and Mary being there, of course, so you can see that I'm not crazy.
All right. Well, if it needs a medical opinion, I'll be glad to give you one.
You're funny.
All right, Chef AJ.
Hey, thank you. It's a lot of fun.
It's been good. Nice to spend the holiday with you. And
thank you so much for catching up on the questions, because we were getting backlogged on them, so we really appreciate it.
Well, I want you to know what a great job you did yesterday, and Hans Steele came across as the man he was, which was a very kind spirit. I mean, if you got to know Hans, you got to know a man that really cared about other people. So, and he was a leader in terms of the message. I once told Hans Steele, probably the day I interviewed him, which you can see that interview on my website, look up Hans Steele. You'll be impressed. I think I told him, I said, Hans Steele, you saved more lives through a good diet, through your CHIP program, than any other person who's lived on planet Earth. That means me, Nathan Pritikin, Campbell, Esselstyn, you name it. He has affected the lives of more people than anybody else I knew Hans Steele did with his CHIP program. And I have no reason to change that statement. I made it 10 years ago. I would make the same statement today. He's a great man. It was a big loss, but that's life. It kind of happens. Okay.
I hope you have a fun rest of your Labor Day, and I'll see you.
Listen, you didn't answer my question.
What was
Write me and tell me how I paint out a bright future for my lecture next.
I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer. If I did,
Help me. And if any of you figure out what I can say positive about the future, I don't want to hear from you climate deniers. Okay. Stay home.
I don't know
Any
the
of you
answer.
have realistic angles on how you can give a positive message to my children and grandchildren about what the future will be? Write me and help me. Help me. Goodbye, AJ.
Bye. Thank you so much, Dr. McDougall. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific for Straight Talk with Dr. Doug Lyle. We've got some amazing questions. Take care, everyone.